Good day, guys. It's Sir AJ Aliado, and I'm a senior high school teacher. And for our Earth and Life Science subject, we'll be learning about rocks and minerals. So let's begin. Before we start, let's talk about now the learning competencies that you should attain after this lesson. First is to identify the common rock forming minerals using their physical and chemical properties, and classify rocks into igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic rocks. So, what are rocks? They're very tiny grains of different minerals compressed together in chemical reaction to form a bigger mass. Sands and the fine debris resulting from broken down rocks or weathered rocks, and sand therefore carries the same or similar properties of rocks that they came from. Soils, on the other hand, are sands that contain air, water, and organic materials in proportions that support the growth of plants and organisms that live in them. So basically, our rocks are different minerals. Mga composed po siya ng different minerals na pinagsama-sama na compact together or nag-compress together through a chemical reaction para magkaroon ng mas malaking mass. While our sand are weathered or nadurog na debris ng ating rocks, pero the same ng properties lang ito ng parent material or the rock that it came from. While ang ating soil are composed now of your sand na merong air, water, and organic materials, ang ating mga decayed materials na very essential to support the life of animals and plants. There are three types of rocks. We have your igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic rocks. So one by one, we will be learning them. So we have now your first is your igneous rocks. So these igneous rocks are formed through fire. Rock that solidified from a molten state. They came from a molten state or molten rocks na ito. Majority of the crustal rock are formed by igneous rocks, and although it is often covered with sedimentary rocks, consist of silicate materials with metallic elements, and they have interlocking grains, your granite, basalt, obsidian, and pumice. So magma is a molten rock beneath the Earth's surface. Okay, magmas are nabuo or molten rocks sa ilalim ng lupa. It came from the Latin word ignis, which means fire. The parent material is usually magma, a molten material from deep within the earth that cools and hardens. This is an exothermic process and involves change of phase from liquid to the solid state. Remember that your igneous rocks came from magmas or lavas. Later on, discuss po ito on magma, or came from magma rather, which is a molten state now of your rocks. Once nagkaroon ng process ay, or cooling process, we have now the change of phase. Nagpapalit po ito ng phase from liquid to the solid state. Here are some examples of your igneous rocks. We have your granite, basalt, pumice, and obsidian. When we talk about igneous rocks, we can often notice now the crystals. Okay, and the crystals now, the size of the crystals now are dependent on how fast or how slow the cooling process happens. So when we have a slow cooling process that happens to our molten rock or our magma or sometimes lava, we do have bigger crystals. While when we have fast cooling material, we have your or fast cooling process, we have smaller crystals. So the cooling history of an igneous rock determines na how big the crystals will be. Okay, again, pag mas mabagal po ang pagkukul ng ating molten state, we have bigger crystals, and your faster cooling, we have smaller crystals. So these are some types of your igneous rocks. You have your intrusive or plutonic. Notice the word intrusive, sabi niyo dyan, intrusive, inside the earth surface. Okay? So formed when magma rise and flow into the cracks in the crust but do not reach the surface. Hindi po siya lumalabas but it seeps out or lumulusot po siya sa mga cracks of the earth but hindi po siya lumalabas outside the surface. Okay? Instead, they harden deep inside the crust. Tumitigas po sila sa loob ng ating crust of the earth. Cools slowly and takes thousands or even millions of years to solidify. If you would remember, the Earth's crust is hot, okay? Mas mainit po habang lumalalim tayo sa layers of the Earth. So, mas bumabagal ang pagpapalamig ng mga igneous rocks na ito. Cooling takes place very slowly because of the surrounding rocks around are also hot. The slow rate of cooling often forms large crystals, and these rocks are usually coarse-grained in texture. Your few examples of your igneous rocks or the intrusive igneous rocks are your granite, diorite, and gabbro. Please look at the picture of the granite. If you would notice, we can differentiate the different minerals now. We have there the orange material, you have here your whitish material, you also have this blackish material. So, ma-identify mo kung anong material ang pinanggalingan nito. Same as your diorite and even in your gabbro. Okay? Another type of your igneous rocks is your extrusive or volcanic igneous rocks. Look at the term extrusive. Pag sinabi mong extrusive, XXX labas. Okay? Sa labas po or outside now the Earth's surface. Okay? The extrusion is called as lava. The molten state outside. Okay? The molten state of rocks outside your Earth's surface, usually outside the volcano, ay tinatawag nating lava. Lava, lava, lavas. Okay? When lava cools rather, it solidifies. Remember na mas malamig outside the Earth's surface rather than inside or beneath the Earth's surface. Okay, so lava cools faster and solidifies quickly. The rapid cooling rate gives a very little opportunity for the crystals to be formed. That's why it usually doesn't have any crystals, or they can be described as glassy, and it's usually fine-grained texture. So some types of your igneous rocks, the exclusive igneous rocks are your obsidian, pumice, basalt, rhyolite, and andesite. If you will look at the obsidian, the first picture in the left, ito po ay very glassy and you cannot determine different minerals na bumubuo sa kanya. Okay, so it's very glassy and because it underwent a fast cooling process. So these are where the extrusive igneous rock formation outside the surface, along the surface of the Earth and beneath the surface of the Earth, doon nangyayari ang ating intrusive igneous rock formation. The comparison now of intrusive plutonic igneous rocks and the extrusive volcanic igneous rocks. So for intrusive, it cools slowly under the surface. It does have large crystals, for example, now your granite. While in the extrusive or volcanic igneous rocks, it cools slowly or cools quickly above the surface and composed of now of small crystals. Usually your examples are your basalt. So now let's talk about the mafic and felsic magma or the molten state. Magma associated crustal spreading are generally mafic, while magmas associated with crustal compression and seafloor spreading are termed felsic. So When we have crustal spreading, it's usually now your Mafic. Pero kapag crustal compression and seafloor spreading, we coin this one as Felsic. The different types of lava, your mafic lava and your felsic lava. When we talk about mafic lava, we have your forms now your oceanic crust, dark colored and generally runny, and felsic lava forms continental crust, light colored and generally thick. For your felsic lava, it does have a high silica content. So high silica content, silica is the same component used in your glass. Okay, so kapag ito'y natunaw, it's usually thick. So dahil marami nga ang ating silica content sa ating felsic magma, it's usually thick or malapot ang ating magmang ito. And it's light in color and very slow moving. Malapot po kasi malapot ang felsic magma and kaya po siya slow moving. While mafic lava or magma are low silica content, may mas manipis or thinner, mas malabnaw ang ating mafic magma, dark in color and easy flow. The components of igneous rock for felsic is composed now of silicon and aluminum, usually with low temperature melting point. It does have a low density or very light and light in color. While in a mafic, it does have now your ferrous and magnesium. It does have high temperature melting point and heavy density, and it's dark colored. Ayan po ang examples ng ating igneous rocks. Your felsic extrusive is your rhyolite. Intermediate extrusive is your andesite. Your mafic extrusive is your basalt. Your felsic intrusive is granite. Your intermediate intrusive is diorite. And mafic intrusive is gabbro. When we say intermediate, we talk about it now na yung gitna or ng ating felsic and mafic. Mga in-betweens po ng ating felsic and mafic. Okay. Okay. So, ayan. The famous extrusive rocks, we have now your columns po. Ayan, very nice. Medyo mga kakalabas na lava na nag-solidify. Yan ang examples natin. Let's now talk about the sedimentary rocks. It's majority of the surface rocks. Yung mga nasa surface rocks po natin, majority po nito ay sedimentary rock because of the wide ocean natin. Okay? And nagkakaroon ng seafloor spreading and all. Kaya kumalat-kalat na po iyan. And we have now it's often fossiliferous or composed of fossils. And you have now your sandstone, shale, limestone, and coal. Sedimentary rocks are formed from lithification, a process of cementing soft, unconsolidated sediment into hard rocks. When rocks are fragmented into tiny bits, these bits are carried or transported to low-lying areas when river reaches a lake or sea, and transported rock pieces settled at the bottom, and this process is called deposition. The rocks that are deposited are called sediments. Okay, so nagkakaroon when the rocks are now weathered and eroded, napupunta po sila usually sa ating mga seas and rivers and lakes, and it now settles at the bottom of the sea. And that's a process called deposition. Pag bumaba na po silang lahat sa kanilang from the floating state nito. And then once now the rocks are deposited in the sediment or in the bottom of the sea, these are now called your sediments. Over the years, many sediments build up strata in a process called sedimentation. Okay? Bumababa na, nag-settle down na sila sa ating bottom. Okay? The weight of these sediments on top squashes the sediments at the bottom, causing the sediments at the lower layer to harden. This is called compaction. Compaction leads to cementation. The water is squeezed out from between the piece of rocks and different salt and crystals are formed. The salt crystals are formed sort of a glue that bonds or cements the fragments together. With some actions of some chemicals in the water, such as calcium carbonate, silica, and iron oxides, plus the great pressure of the new sediments at the upper layer, the grains of sediments are cemented together. Okay, so once they settled in the bottom, nagkakaroon po ng yung lower layer po ay nag-harden kasi nga po na bibigyan siya ng pressure ng water and also yung mga papatong sa kanyang other sediments. And this is now the process called compaction. Okay, tapos habang nagkakaroon ng compaction, the cementation also happens in which salt crystals now act, nagsisilbi po siyang glue or nagdidikit-dikit sa mga different sediments na ito. So here's an illustration. Nagkakaroon tayo ng eroded sediments end up in the water and begins to settle. Nagkakaroon ng sedimentation, after which, after time, more layers pile up and the pressure down the lower, there's the pressure presses down the lower layers. We have your compaction, and then more layers and more layers hanggang nagkakaroon ng cementation or salt crystals now glue together the layers. Classifying sedimentary rock. First type of your sedimentary rock is your clastic sedimentary rock, derived from weathered and fragmented rocks, boulders or microscopic grain sizes, your mudstone, your shale, and your sandstone. Okay, it usually comes from your mga rocks lang talaga, weathered rocks, yan. Puro rin minerals ang nagko-compose dito. Another one is your chemical dissolved minerals din po siya, but there's a chemical process that happened and transported in solution and precipitated, such as your limestone and evaporites. Your organic remains, it's usually the remains now of dead organisms, may contain fossils of plants and animals trapped in the sediments as rock was formed. For example, your coal and your coquina. When it's usually now those you see along the beach, yung mga rocks na merong shells, may bato, tapos may brown or may white sand doon na naka-enjoy, ay nakasama, that's your coquina, okay? And your coal, yung mga binaburn natin for our gas, okay? Your coal. These are now the famous sedimentary rocks. We have here your Grand Canyon, yan. And sa Greece, yan po. Next topic is your metamorphic rocks. Okay? Rocks change by heat or pressure, change structure and appearance, composition, and texture of parent rock without melting. Nagkaroon ng change due to heat and pressure. Okay? Commonly at the root of mountains. So, the examples of this are your slate, schist, and your gneiss. Metamorphic rocks get their name from meta, meaning change, and morph, meaning form. Nagkakaroon ng change in form. Metamorphism, old rocks now have your igneous, sedimentary, or another older metamorphic rock change into a new kind. Okay, the change is transformation of rocks, mineralogy, and physical characteristics. Okay? Nagkakaroon ng change sa mineralogy or sa physical and also sa physical properties, sa chemical and physical properties ng ating metamorphic rocks because of heat and pressure. Metamorphic rocks arise from transformation of existing rock types called metamorphism or change in form. Metamorphic rocks have been modified by heat, pressure, and chemical processes, usually while buried deep down below the Earth's surface. Exposure to these extreme conditions has altered the mineralogy, texture, and chemical composition of these rocks. We have here your non-foliated metamorphic rock or foliated. You also have here, this is an example of metamorphic rocks, how the process rather, may heat and pressure sa ilalim, tapos may pressures across sa upper crust ng ating Earth. So there's a change now that's happening within this area. Okay? Your foliate and all. These are now the... let's now talk about the rock cycle. Okay? So let's start with the igneous rock, pero pwede ka naman magsimula sa kahit saan because this is a cycle. So igneous rocks undergo now your weathering and erosion. Nag-underwent siya ng weathering and erosion, nagdudurog po siya, and carried out by wind, by water, by animals, by humans, and forms now your sediment. Napupunta po siya sa mga dagat and it settles down, undergoes compaction and cementation, at nagkakaroon tayo ng sedimentary rock. Once we have your sedimentary rock, it can go in two ways. Pwede po siyang mag-undergo ng weathering and erosion ulit at magiging sediment po siya ulit at undergo ng compaction and cementation, magiging sedimentary rock siya ulit. Or pwede po siya, ang sedimentary rock ay mag-undergo ng heat and pressure, forming now your metamorphic rock. Sa metamorphic rock natin, pwede po siyang mag-weather and erosion ulit at magiging sediment, at magiging sedimentary rock ulit. Or pwede po siyang pumunta sa ilalim ng lupa due to tectonic plate movement. And then we have now your melting. Okay, pwede po siya mag-melt at magiging magma na naman siya, making it into pag nag-cool siya, igneous rock na naman po ulit. Rock cycle is a group of changes, and igneous rocks can change into sedimentary rock or into metamorphic rock. Sedimentary rock can change into metamorphic rock or into igneous rock, and metamorphic rock can change into igneous or sedimentary rocks. Your rock cycle, the same po. Minerals, a naturally occurring homogeneous substance which has more or less definite atomic structure. Okay? So, the physical properties and minerals, papasadahan po natin isa-isa ito, but we have here colors, streak, luster, hardness, habit, cleavage, fracture, feel, tenacity, magnetism, fluorescence, specific gravity, and form. Colors now are absorption of the certain wavelengths of the light by the atom making up the crystal. So, depende po ito sa na-absorb ng crystal in your atoms ng ating mga minerals. Color and appearances in light depends upon the composition and structure of the substance. So you have here your diamond. Though clear siya, it kind of acts as a prism. Once the light hits your diamond, nagkakaroon ng prismatic effect. Okay, yan. Change in colors. You have your streak. The color of mineral powder is called streak, obtained by rubbing the minerals against the unglazed porcelain slate called the streak plate. So, depende po ito. Ang streak ay how it scratches now or naiwan doon sa ating streak plate. The luster is how minerals reflect light from its surface. How it reflects. Paano nire-reflect ang ating light. So, we have your two types, your metallic luster and non-metallic luster. Now you have your hardness, the resistance of a mineral to scratching or abrasion. Hardness is determined by rubbing a mineral to unknown hardness against one with known hardness. We usually use now the Mohs scale of hardness by fingers, by knife, or penny. Here are examples of minerals with their Mohs hardness. And we have here your talc as pinakalambot with 1 and diamond with 10. Okay? The habit of minerals is the size and shape of the crystal and the structure or form shown by the crystal. We have your acicular minerals showing needle-like crystals such as your natural. We have your fibrous such as your asbestos, may mga fibers. Your tabular minerals showing bladed habit occur as small knife blades, may mga parang small knife blade like na itsura. Your granular, aggregate of equidimensional grains. Your piezoelastic aggregates of rounded grains of pea size. Your bauxite, botryoidal. Your mineral showing aggregate of surrounded masses resembling a bunch of grapes. Your columnar, such as your tourmaline, mineral showing columns, now columns, kaya nga columnar. Cleavage now is a tendency of minerals to break more easily with smooth surface along planes of weak bonding. It is a property which relates to atomic arrangement within the minerals. For example, mica, galena, and calcite. Okay? Depending on how easily it breaks. Ayan, we have your mica has basal cleavage, rhombohedral ang cleavage ng calcite, and your galena has cubic. Pag na-break mo ito ay nagkakaroon to ng different shapes. Okay, your fracture now mineral breaks into two but it does not along the cleavage. Hindi po siya nagbe-break along the cleavage or the fracture, okay? Neither linear nor parallel. Okay, even fractures and your uneven. Minerals can be identified by how it breaks. Okay? Obsidian, although not a mineral because of its lack of crystal structure, shows excellent conchoidal fracture, and asbestos on the right, common fractures several minerals that form thin thread-like structures with fibrous fracture. Okay, so feel now is dependent na on how you touch. When you touch the rock, ay paano mo siya nararamdaman? Does it feel soapy, greasy, rough, or harsh? Such as your talc, it feels greasy. Okay? Your kaolin has feels so feeling, and your bauxite are. Tenacity now is a mineral denotes the degree of character of cohesion. Paano siya nagdikit-dikit. Okay? And magnetism is how few minerals are attracted by magnets. Of this mineral, magnetite and pyrrhotite are the most common examples. The magnetite possesses attracting power, and polarity called lodestone. Fluorescence. Some minerals, when exposed to sunlight and ultraviolet rays, produce a color quite different from their own. Thus, green or colorless fluorite shows blue, purple in the ultraviolet light. This property is called fluorescence. Yan ang example natin. Specific gravity is a number of which represents the ratio of the weight of a mineral to the weight of an equal volume of water. Thus, a mineral with a specific gravity of 4 is 4 times as heavy as water. The internal atomic arrangement of a mineral is manifested outwardly by development of geometrical shapes of crystal structure. Okay? So, for example, your coal and your diamonds are the same composition niya po ay carbon. But, hindi pareho ang itsura ng diamond and carbon because of the structure po ng ating diamond and coal. Ayan po ang ating minerals, your pyrite, hematite, color or brass yellow, reddish brown, luster, metallic to dull. Your streak is greenish or brownish compared to the hematite, which is dark and red. Hardness is between of the pyrite is 6 to 6.5 and 5 to 6 naman para sa hematite. And its habit is common forms are cube and manufacture of sulfuric acid as iron or as pigment ng ating hematite. And cleavage is present in pyrite and absent in hematite. And difference po niya ay different. So these are now the examples of our difference po ng different rocks natin. And I hope you learned something from this lecture video. And if you do have questions, please put it comment down below and share this one to your friends who might need the help for the explanation. Again, this is teacher AJ, and we just talked about rocks and minerals. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.